Hello, everybody. I am that one guy, the Flock Litter Hawk, and today we will be. I forgot to put my headphones in. Hello, everybody. I totally didn't have to put in my earbud or anything, and even if I did, I'd probably, get rid of the take where I didn't have my earbud, because wouldn't that be silly? Future me, take it out. Great. So, I fuck. Okay, so but basically, what this video is about is today's May 2nd, and 10 years ago today, Ironman 1 came out and started an entire franchise of movies. Not just Iron Man movies, but the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe we have to thank for this one movie. And I was thinking to myself, I should do a video on Iron Man, but not on the movie Iron Man. I think we should do a video on the growth of the character Iron Man and how he's grown as a character since the beginning. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna talk about Iron Man from him being baby little Iron Man in the very beginning, and then him growing as a person and everything up until now. So I'm going to use this handy dandy infinity gauntlet. I'll use this bad boy right here, and I'm going to go back in time to 2010 and check everything out so I can get a fresh perspective on what was going on. Oh my god. That fucking sucked. The earthquake in Haiti happened. Hundreds of people died. Tons of suicide bombings. Shrek 4? I had so many fond memories of that. Was it because I was a child? It was because I was a child. I didn't know anything was going wrong. Everything was okay. I was out going to go see fucking Iron Man. Holy shit. Like, oh my god. That was literally the worst thing I've ever done. Like, seriously, the worst thing I've ever done. Never let me do that again. Okay? Never let me do that again. That shit was terrible. Okay? It was awful. It sucked. It was the worst thing ever. Oh my god. Oh. Thanks, Obama. Alright, back on topic. When I went back, I noticed that not only was 2010 in general kind of a shitty year, but Iron Man wasn't that great of a person either. See, when we think about, like a hero's journey, generally a hero has to learn something and grow. And one of the big things about the first Iron Man movie is that they didn't know that they were going to make more movies, right? So it was a really big risk to make this movie, especially because Iron Man was not a fucking A-list superhero. He wasn't. I know that people think that he is and or was, but he was not. No one gave a shit about Iron Man. He had a single TV show. And it was cool and awesome. Picture here. Look at that. Look how fucking cool that is. Wouldn't you want to fucking watch that? It's fucking sweet. Right? But, Iron Man, the character, never really got much credit. Especially because, in the comic books, whenever they tried to make more real, adult, personal stories, it was about how he was a fucking alcoholic and a drug addict. And a sex monger. And about how he was in general just like a shitty dude, right? So when Robert Downey Jr. was cast in a role as Iron Man, he first said that he didn't want to do any of the drugs or alcohol in the movie that Tony actually does in the comic book, because he in real life had problems uh, with addiction, and he didn't want that to come off onto a superhero. And especially he didn't want to be seen as that. He didn't want that to be his thing. He's the drug addict guy. That's not what he wanted. What he really wanted was, what is on my shoulder? Okay, sorry about the shoulder thing. I don't know what that was. So when Robert Downey Jr. comes into this role, he doesn't want to be seen as the drug guy, or the guy who is like the go drugs, woo, and drugs are cool and woo, and he didn't want that to come across, because his entire career, that's all he was a drug guy, and that's what people saw him as. So when he became Iron Man, he was like, yeah, I'll totally be Iron Man, but like, I'm not gonna do the drugs and stuff. I'm not gonna do the alcohol and the drinking and stuff. And that changed what we thought about the character. I'm dead serious. When Robert Downey Jr. became Iron Man in the comics changed. Iron Man in the cartoons changed. Like, our idea of Iron Man changed 100%, right? And it was insane. Like, there'd never really been something that big in a really long time. Like, the only other example that I could even bring up from around that time was Hugh Jackman seriously changed Wolverine. Like, he did. Like, the look of Wolverine, and like, Wolverine in the comic books is a really short dude, and Hugh Jackman is like 6'2". Dude's really tall, right? And so whenever he played Wolverine, like, he was a fucking tall dude. So comic books started making Wolverine tall, or taller, you know? And that was a big thing. That was a really big thing for Robert Downey Jr., was that he created an identity for this character. And that's why I don't think you could ever replace Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. But enough about Robert Downey Jr. Let's talk about Iron Man, the character. The character of Iron Man is very unique. He is a unique person. He goes through a particular type of growth, because he comes from, literally all of his life, is all of his money, all of his dad's money, all comes from building weapons. And he himself, makes more weapons and makes more money and is a billionaire and all that stuff. And then he gets hurt by one of his own weapons. He literally hurts himself. And in that first movie, that's what he has to deal with, is that he creates these weapons and that they hurt people. And, I think each villain in the Iron Man movies kind of reflects something about Tony, like, okay, so Ironmonger, which is the first villain, Obadiah Stane or whatever. Like, he is a dark reflection of Tony as a whole. Like, he was the opposite. Like, his suit was much bigger, his suit was much clunkier, and had more firepower to it. And it was darker, and like, he really was the opposite of Iron Man in that movie, and Tony had to face him. He literally had to face another thing that he created, because the Killmonger suit was built off of the bones of the first Iron Man suit, the Mark I Iron Man suit that he made in the cave. And so he literally has to fight something he created again, but this time literally fight something that he has created, And I think that that's something that sticks with him, is that he always creates the villains he fights. Always. So he beats Obadiah Stane, but at the end of the movie, with each movie, a character has to undergo growth. With any story, a character has to go from point A to point B. And that's just something that that I think a lot of people don't understand whenever they try to make a movie. Because you watch some movies and you don't see like a character grow, and that ultimately is a problem. And Tony grows. He realizes that his weapons should be used for good or not at all. So he destroys all of his weapons because they're obviously not being used for the purpose that he built them for. So by the end of Iron Man 1, Tony has grown a little bit. But he's also still kind of a cocky asshole, And he's still Tony, and he owns up that he's Iron Man. And when he's Iron Man, he's like a fucking rock star. The beginning of Iron Man 2 literally shows him jumping out of a fucking plane, right? And landing down like he's a fucking lead singer for Aerosmith. And he's just out there and fucking rocking it. Like he's a fucking rock star, And there's all these people, and they're super excited to see him. But they're super, and he comes out of his fucking suit in like a tuxedo, and like it's a show for him. Like being Iron Man is like a party trick, almost. Even though he uses Iron Man for good, it's still kind of backwards. Like he grew in the first movie. There was a definite sign of growth in this movie. But when you get to the second movie, you realize that Tony still has some growing to do. And that is where Whiplash, the guy with the fucking the things, that's where he comes in, because he also was created by and this isn't really Tony's fault. He's not created by Tony's technology, but his father's technology. Right? And it turns out that this dude, all of the repulsor stuff and all of the arc reactor stuff, that was his idea, and Tony's dad stole it from him, and that's a really big fucking deal. That's Tony having to deal with his father's problems and realizing that just because he's Iron Man doesn't mean that he's 100% in the clear. There are still problems even when he's Iron Man. There's still problems with his character and with his dad's character when he is Iron Man. And I really think that's a really great that is a really great way to show that a character, even when they are super, that the super part just adds problems and doesn't really make them go away. The other villain in that movie is Justin Hammer, which is the guy who he's the other weapons manufacturer. He eventually gets the Mark II Iron Man armor from Rhodey, and he turns it into the War Machine armor. Now, one of the big things with that, I'm gonna backstep a little bit. One of the best scenes of the whole movie is when Tony's really drunk and being an asshole, and he's in the Iron Man suit and he's blowing things up. And Rhodey gets in a suit, and they're gonna fight. And Tony's being an asshole, he's 100% he's being a dick, right? This is no small thing, and it's still he still grows in the movie, you still see him learn that, you see him understand that his creations aren't always his own.
And he shouldn't always appropriate, what he thinks is his or his father's, that other people help you create who you are. Like Rhodey and Pepper and Nick Fury's in the movie. He tries to help him with his like little fucking like the arc reactors killing him. Like all of that stuff helps build Tony to who he is, and that's what Tony learns in that movie, is that it's not the inventor, it's lots of people who come into the creation of something. And and that's where Tony grows, and he grows even more in that movie. And then the Avengers comes out, the first Avengers movie, and one of the best scenes of the entire movie is when Cap and Iron Man are about to get in a fight, and Cap's basically like, big man in his suit of armor, take that away, and what are you? And Tony has his little quips and stuff. He has his whatever. But that stays with Tony. Like that question stays with Tony for a really long time. Right? And it stays with him all the way up to Spider-Man Homecoming. And I'll explain that in a second. But yeah, so you see Tony in that movie, and he's still kind of an ass, and he meets Captain America, and Captain America is not trying to be the Boy Scout. He's literally, he's confronting Tony, and he's telling Tony like, "Yo, dude, like it's not about what you are, when you take off the suit, because what he is a playboy, philanthropist, words, Jarrett, put it up. Thank you. But he's a billionaire. That's what he is. But who he is much different, and that's like that's a really big thing, and that's what Captain America is saying. Not like, when you take off the suit, like you're a fucking pussy magnet, right? He's like, that's not what we're talking about. He's like, when you take off the suit, you're just a dude. You're selfish. You're always up your own ass, and that's what Cap is saying. Cap isn't like, you take away the suit and you're what, hot? Like, no. He's saying when you take away the suit, like, Iron Man is what makes you a superhero. Right? So without that suit, you're not Iron Man. And that's the thing, is that Captain America is the perfect person to be giving this speech to Tony. Because even without his shield, Captain America is Captain America. Steve Rogers is a superhero with or without his shield. The shield is an object. It's like a symbol almost. And that doesn't make him a hero. What makes him a hero is that he's selfless. And that's what Steve is trying to get across to Tony. When I take away your suit, who are you? And are you really a hero? And that's a big question in that movie. And at the end of the movie, when he basically almost sacrifices himself to save everyone, you see him grow and realize that he has to get over himself in order to be a real hero. Before I go on to the next part, I'm going to take a quick break for myself. So, I'll be back in a second. So before we talk about this next movie, I would really, really like to get out of the way that I hate Iron Man 3. I hate it. I hate that movie. And I have an actual reason why. It's the Mandarin. The Mandarin in that movie really upsets me. Because that movie should have been a really big growing moment for Tony, right? But I feel like it wasn't. Because the Mandarin represents everything that's the opposite with Tony. He uses magic and not technology, right? And that's the big thing with Tony, is that, you know, Tony relies on technology, and the Mandarin has his 10 rings of power. And I just really feel that if they had been bolder, that movie would have come out a lot different. Now, in that movie, we find out that the Mandarin is fake, but this dude that fucking Tony left out on the top of a rooftop or something is all mad at him and comes back hot, and then does this whole extremist thing and turns people into fire. It's dumb. It's so dumb. All right, I'm going to be honest. I cannot talk about that movie in a nice way. That movie is so fucking stupid. Fucking Iron Man 3 is shitty break. Go. Boom. So, one of my big problems with this movie, really big problem, is the way that they portrayed PTSD in this movie. Because Tony is supposed to be all kinds of fucked up since he threw like a bomb up into space and blew up the Chitauri and all that shit. Like, cool, right? Got it. That's great. He is so not Tony in this movie. Like, if you watch other movies after this movie, he's like Tony. He's totally Tony. He's bothered by things. But, like, in a realistic way. Not in a, oh, look at me, I'm kind of twitchy way. Like, that's, like, no. No. My actual father has PTSD. And, like, I see what it's like for him. I see how it is for him. So, one thing that I thought that they got kind of right was when Tony wakes up from having a bad dream, and he kind of, like, shoots up and stuff. And, like, my dad does that sometimes. So, like, I totally understand that makes sense. Everything about Tony is stripped away in this movie. Anything I liked about him, he's not there. He's not funny, and the only time he's ever a smart ass is with that fucking kid, right? That kid he gives all of his shit to. That is literally the only time, like, the only time we see him interact with someone in a smart ass way. For the rest of the movie, he's just fucking, oh, boo. Like, he's not even like, he's portrayed in a way that I think gives people with PTSD like a bad name and gives people the wrong idea of what post-traumatic stress disorder actually is. And because I had a friend and her mom try to explain to me, like, oh, well, he's dealing with PTSD and blah, 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 blah. And they were getting really defensive about it. Like, I didn't fucking understand it. Because I do. They don't understand it. Like, the movie people. Like, the people who go out and make movies don't get what PTSD is like. At all. Tony totally should have been bothered, but in a realistic way. You know? In a way where he's quiet and to himself. But when someone asks, he plays it off jokingly, like Tony would do. Because it's in his character to play things off, when genuinely he is bothered. And that would show actual fucking depth to a character. But I guess no, he's just fucking, oh, jumping out at oh, is that a twig? Oh, God, no. It's fucking stupid. And I hated it, right? Then the Mandarin wasn't real, and that instantly hated the movie, right as it happened. Like, right as the Mandarin was fake, I totally lost interest. Like the rest of the movie was just whatever. Because Tony comes in with, like, nothing but a fucking glove, right? And goes to confront the Mandarin, and here's the showdown. Tony, without any weapons, versus the Mandarin with what we assume is all of his rings of power. And he has to go face the Mandarin all by himself. And it's an intense moment. But no, he's just some fucking British actor dude. It was terrible. It fucking made me mad. But by the end of the movie, break over, by the way. By the end of the movie, Tony realizes ultimately what Captain America was trying to say to him, that it's not the suit that makes him Iron Man, it's him. It's not the arc reactor that makes him Iron Man, it's him. And he gets the shrapnel taken out of his chest, and he blows up all of his Iron Man suits, and we think that he has grown in a way that you can end a story on. And that's the problem. Is whoever's making Iron Man 3 obviously didn't realize that they were trying to build a fucking universe. So what actually happened is that Iron Man was like, I don't have an arc reactor in my chest, and I blew up all my Iron Man suits. And then in Age of Ultron, he's like, I'm fucking Iron Man again. Just cause, right? And they explore this later in a very real and totally legit way. It was really dumb in Age of Ultron. I was like, oh, look, he's Iron Man again. But they don't talk about it, right? And, like, in that movie, they don't talk about anything. That movie's trash, too. But I would prefer to watch that movie over Iron Man 3. And Tony realizes that sometimes his best intentions aren't always good, is what Age of Ultron is. You know, in Age of Ultron, because he accidentally creates Ultron instead of Ant-Man creating Ultron. And he you know, he realizes that he can't put the world like in a bubble like he wanted. He was trying to make the perfect AI, you know, something that could help them, you know, control what was going on around them and help protect the world. But then he realizes he can't just put bubble wrap over the planet, and that's actually a bad thing, and in that he grows. And that is a really, really big thing for him, is for him to realize that he can't always be in control there. So where we see Tony really start to mature and grow, like really, really, like noticeably mature as a character, is in Civil War. And it's perfect. Like, it's so great. So at the end of Avengers, he realizes that he can't control everything, and that's great. But he's still kind of arrogant. And in Civil War, he realizes that there are consequences to his actions, right? That, you know, and that's what his whole arc is about. Like, his whole, from the beginning of Iron Man, the original one, you know, all the way up to Infinity War, it's literally him realizing that when he does something else will come back, and there will be a repercussion of it. Literally everything he does. Obadiah Stane was because he created the Iron Man suit and created weapons in general. Like, the whole arc reactor thing in his chest was because he made weapons. That was his fault. Ironmonger was his fault because he made Iron Man, right? The second one, because he was successful off of Whiplash's technology, Whiplash comes back to get him, you know? And in Iron Man 3, because he tries to, you know, he leaves that guy out on the roof, and he's a dick to him. And then whenever he tells Pepper that he's going to stop making Iron Man suits, and then he keeps making Iron Man, he just keeps doing it, right? Because he wants to be prepared, and he wants to do all this stuff. He divides a wedge between himself and other people, and then he realizes that he can't do anything by himself. And then you look at Age of Ultron. In Age of Ultron, he can't put bubble wrap over everything. He's starting to mature, and by maturing, he's like a dad, and he wants to take care of things, but he can't just hold everything down and just lock it down tight like he wants to. Like, things have to go naturally, and he has to let his grip go on things, and it's really leading up to Civil War, where Tony's presented with this woman who shows her a picture of her son, shows him a picture of her son, and is like, is basically like, oh, this is my son, and he was a really great kid until you dropped a building on him, right? And then Tony realizes that when he's going out and being Iron Man, and Iron Man, like whenever they're having the show and he comes down in the tuxedo and the he's a rock star. That guy causes just as many deaths as he does save lives. And for Tony in Civil War, that's where we see like the peak of his arc. Is that he's like, he finally matures and is like, we just can't go around and like kick ass and stuff. We can't just go around and do whatever we want. And this is a guy who has spent his entire life going around doing whatever he wanted. And he sits down and goes, I can't just sit around and do whatever I want. I have to take responsibility for for my actions, and we have to take responsibility for our actions. And that's where Tony's arc really hits maximum density. Because he's finally grown and accepted that it's not about being Iron Man or being a hero. It's about helping people, right? And that helping people comes along with or without the Iron Man suit. And he realizes this. He realizes that we can still help people even if I'm not a fucking Iron Man. Even if the government's like, oh, you're not Iron Man anymore. Katong, right? Like, he realizes this. And that's his motivation in Civil War, is that he's grown and matured and is like, I have to take responsibility for my actions. If that means that I can't be Iron Man, then done. Sorry. That's his choice. And in Spider-Man Homecoming, which is set after Civil War, you see him grow into a father figure for Peter, which is something Peter hasn't had since Uncle Ben died. And it's insane because one of the best lines, and everyone knows it, is when he's getting on the Peter for causing a lot of trouble on this ferry. And he basically, Peter, he's going to go take the suit away from Peter. And Peter's like, oh, well, I'm nothing without this suit. And Tony, having grown since the Avengers and all these movies, says to Peter, if you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it. Meaning, it's not about the suit. It's about who you are underneath the suit. If you're not a hero outside of the suit, if you can't save lives outside of the suit, then you don't deserve the suit. You don't deserve the shield. You don't deserve the hammer. The objects that we use to save people are not the same as who you are when you save someone. The suit, the Iron Man suit, doesn't make Tony Iron Man. The fact that Tony's willing to risk his life to save innocent people, that's what makes him Iron Man. And that is what he's trying to teach Peter. Peter, the suit isn't what makes you Spider-Man. The fact that you go out every day, help old ladies, with their directions, you stop car thieves, you risk what you have in order to make the world a better place, or to make the neighborhood a better place. That's what makes you Spider-Man. Is your actions, not your suit. It's not what you wear or what you have. It's what you do that makes you a superhero. And that's what Tony's trying to tell Peter. And the only reason why Tony is teaching him this lesson is because Captain America was trying to teach him the same lesson years before. And that is where Tony really, that like he is changed as a character. And in Infinity War, and I'm not really gonna spoil anything, at the beginning of Infinity War, he wants to be a dad and has a dream that Pepper and him have a kid. And like that's it. That's my spoiler. That happens like literally like 5 minutes into the movie, but he goes from wanting to fuck anything that walks to wanting to be a father, to want to settle down and take care of things. And we see him act as a father figure towards Peter, which is probably why he wants a son, is because Peter's like a son to him. And you see him go from this asshole who only thinks about himself, who creates weapons of mass destruction, to a man who realizes that it's not what he can create that makes the world a better place. It's what he decides not to create. It's what he does without his creations that makes Iron Man a superhero. And if it weren't for Tony growing as a person, if it weren't for Tony learning that the suit is just a suit and not Iron Man, we would not have the Marvel Cinematic Universe without him. If Tony hadn't grown in the first movie, we wouldn't have it now. We wouldn't have Infinity War. We wouldn't have Doctor Strange or Black Panther. We wouldn't have any of these movies that we cherish and love to this day. If it weren't for Tony growing, none of this would be possible. And that's why I say happy birthday to Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know that this has been a kind of a long video, but I really wanted to talk about how Tony has grown. And I'm really glad that he's grown, and I'm really glad that I could have grown with him, and that for the past 10 years I've been growing with another superhero, and it's just great. It's just really great. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed. Go out and celebrate, watch all the Marvel movies and stuff. Watch the first one or whatever. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you on the flip side. Hello everybody, thank you so much for enjoying my video. If you want to see more from me, please click that playlist right there. If you want to watch even more from me, click that playlist right there. And if you want to subscribe, touch my dinosaur head. Philanthropist. Playboy. Alright, hey guys, I was editing the video and you probably just saw me try to say philanthropist a bunch of times. It's PH, it's philanthropist, not philanthropist. And that's why I couldn't say it. I got it in my hand. That's why I couldn't say it, was because I was trying to say philanthropist instead of philanthropist. I could say it now. Philanthropist.